The front door slammed. Ethan flinched, pencil slipping from his fingers, skittering across the floor. From the entryway came the sound of claws scratching the tile. Then, a soft whimper. He turned. There it was, a scruffy, limping puppy staring up at him with wide, uncertain eyes. His mother's voice echoed from downstairs. "I found him. He needs a home." Ethan's stomach twisted. Great. Another broken thing in this house. Chance shuffled forward, his little body trembling with effort, dragging one leg behind him. He stopped at the base of Ethan's chair and sat, tail thumping once, hesitant. Ethan looked away. He clenched his fists, staring hard at his sketchpad. Outside, kids raced by on bikes, laughing, free. He heard the neighbor's golden retriever barking joyfully. His pencil lay just out of reach. He glanced at it, at the puppy, back at the pencil. He ground his teeth. He wasn't going to ask for help, not from his mother, not from anyone, and certainly not from some pathetic dog that everyone pitied more than him. The puppy whimpered softly, small, apologetic. Ethan's lip curled. "Stop looking at me like you understand." He reached for the pencil. His body protested. Pain shot through his side. He couldn't reach. The puppy tilted its head. Then it moved. With surprising determination, Chance limped to the pencil, nosed it gently, and picked it up in his mouth. He shuffled back and dropped it in Ethan's lap. Ethan froze. For a moment, neither of them moved. The puppy's tail wagged, slow, hopeful. Ethan wanted to shove it away, to curse, to scream. Instead, he picked up the pencil, dropped it again. Chance fetched it. He dropped it again. Chance fetched it. And for the first time in weeks, Ethan's mouth twitched, a small, reluctant smile. But he wiped it away just as fast. "I don't need you," he muttered. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance. Inside, Chance settled by the crutches in the corner, curling into a tight ball, his eyes never leaving Ethan's. Morning light spilled across Ethan's sketchpad, half-finished lines, smudged and restless. His fingers hovered over the page, twitching with frustration. He couldn't get it right. Couldn't get anything right. A soft rustle. He didn't look up, but Chance was there, sitting at attention in the corner, watching, always watching. Ethan pressed harder on the pencil. The lead snapped. "Perfect," he hissed. The stub rolled off the desk, tapping against the hardwood and stopping inches from Chance's paw. Ethan clenched his jaw. He wasn't asking for help, not from anyone. He shifted in his chair, his legs heavy, unresponsive. He reached, strained, failed. A moment of silence, then movement. Chance limped forward, nose to the pencil. He picked it up, careful and deliberate, and placed it on Ethan's lap. Ethan stared down at it. His throat tightened. He dropped it again. Chance fetched it. The laugh broke out of him before he could stop it, raw, cracked, almost a sob. He slapped a hand over his mouth, eyes burning, chest heaving. Chance's tail wagged furiously. His ears perked, eyes bright with triumph. Ethan wiped his eyes, muttering, "You're ridiculous." A low growl rumbled outside, not from Chance, thunder. The storm rolled closer. Chance shivered. He pressed himself against Ethan's leg. Ethan hesitated, then, slowly, rested a hand on the dog's back. "You're fine," he whispered, voice shaking. "We're fine." The first raindrops slammed against the window like pebbles. The house creaked. The lights flickered. Wind howled through the cracks. Chance whimpered. Ethan squeezed his eyes shut, trying to block it out. But the storm pressed in on all sides. Louder, heavier, relentless. The power cut out. Ethan's breath caught. The room plunged into darkness, except for the violent flashes of lightning illuminating Chance's wide, terrified eyes. The dog buried his head under Ethan's arm. And for the first time, Ethan didn't push him away, but deep in his chest, something twisted, a knot of dread. Because storms passed, but trouble never did. The wind screamed through the cracks in the windows, rattling the panes like frantic hands. Rain lashed sideways, drumming on the roof in violent bursts. Ethan sat frozen in his chair, heart hammering, hand resting on Chance's shivering back. Another flash of lightning, bright enough to blind. Thunder cracked so loud the walls seemed to shake. Chance bolted upright, his ears pricked, nose twitching. Before Ethan could react, a sudden bang echoed down the hall. The front door, wrenched open by the storm. "No," Ethan whispered. Chance's body tensed. In a blink, he leapt off the bed, his limp forgotten in the surge of instinct. "Chance, wait!" Too late. The dog dashed down the hall, claws skittering on the floor. Ethan fumbled for his crutches, panic roaring in his ears. His body felt like stone, slow and uncooperative. The wind roared louder, filling the house with a hollow scream. He forced himself up. His legs wobbled. Crutches slipped under his arms. Step, wobble, step, faster. He reached the front door just in time to see Chance bounding off the porch, chasing leaves, whipping through the storm like wild ghosts. "Chance!" Ethan shouted, his voice lost in the wind. The dog ignored him, head down, determined, toward the street. Horns blared, tires screeched on wet pavement. Ethan's breath strangled in his throat. Not him, please, not him. He lurched forward, crutches slipping on the rain-slick porch. He stumbled, caught himself. His muscles screamed. His heart pounded harder than it ever had. Out on the road, Chance froze, headlights bearing down, blinding and merciless. Tires shrieked. Steel screamed. Chaos closed in. "Chance!" Ethan screamed so loud his throat burned, and then his crutch hit the curb wrong. He fell, hard. His palms scraped rough concrete. His knees slammed into the ground. Pain exploded up his legs, white-hot and cruel. He lifted his head, vision spinning. Chance stood in the middle of chaos, shaking, terrified. Horns, screams, brakes squealing, rain hammering down. And Chance, small, broken, brave, turned and limped toward him, right into the storm of screeching metal and flashing lights. Ethan reached out, tears blinding him. Please. But the world was a blur of danger, and Chance was walking straight into it. Rain hammered the pavement like gunfire. Chance limped into the street, cars sliding and swerving around him, metal monsters screeching on wet asphalt. Headlights flashed, horns blared. Ethan's heart stopped. "Chance, get out of there!" he choked, his voice ragged and useless against the chaos. The puppy froze mid-road, trembling, wide-eyed. A horn screamed, tires shrieked, a car skidded, spinning dangerously close. Chance lunged forward, limping, stumbling, but unstoppable. Every step a battle, every breath ragged, splashing through water like a soldier charging enemy fire. He dodged between bumpers, narrowly missing disaster. Ethan clawed at the curb, mud sucking at his fingers. His crutches lay discarded, useless. His body betrayed him, locked in place as terror tore at his chest. All he could do was watch, powerless. Come on," he whispered, sobs choking the words. Chance pushed forward. A horn blasted inches from him, the wind from a passing truck nearly toppling his tiny frame, but he didn't stop. Closer, closer. Finally, Chance reached the curb. He pressed his wet body against Ethan's chest, shivering violently. Ethan wrapped his arms around the dog, holding on for dear life. But they weren't safe yet. A car swerved onto the shoulder, tires slipping, mud splattered. Water surged toward them. Ethan forced himself up, muscles screaming, mind screaming louder. One crutch, then the other. He braced himself. "Come on, buddy," he gasped. Chance pressed against his leg, steadying him. Step! Another step. The street roared around them, chaos and fury, but Ethan focused only on that next shaky step. And Chance, small but fierce, stayed at his side, guiding him. They reached the porch. Ethan collapsed onto the steps, breath ragged, heart hammering against his ribs. Chance curled into his lap, drenched and exhausted. Ethan buried his face in the dog's soaked fur. You saved me," he whispered, tears hot and unstoppable. Chance's tail gave the faintest wag, and in that moment, amid thunder and sirens and chaos fading into the distance, Ethan knew. They hadn't saved each other by accident. They were meant to. The storm was gone, but something lingered in the quiet. Not fear, peace. Ethan sat on the porch steps. Chance curled beside him, both of them damp, exhausted, and safe. For a long time, they just breathed. No words, no noise, just two souls who had been through fire and made it out together. Days passed, and things began to change. Therapy was still hard. Walking still hurt. But every time Ethan faltered, he glanced down. And Chance was there, steady, loyal. Tail wagging like a tiny metronome, keeping time with his steps. And something else shifted, too. Ethan picked up his pencil again, but this time not to escape. He began to draw the world around him, the leaves on the porch, the crutches leaning by the door, not forgotten, but conquered. And finally, Chance. He spent hours on that sketch, every hair, every detail. The way Chance's ears flopped unevenly, the gentle curve of his scarred leg, the light in his eyes that never stopped shining. When he finished, his hand shook, not from weakness, but emotion. For the first time in so long, he felt proud. He carried the drawing downstairs, heart pounding harder than it had in that street. His parents sat at the kitchen table, sipping coffee, glancing up in surprise. I want to show you something," Ethan said softly. His mother's eyes widened. His father slowly set down his mug. Ethan laid the sketch on the table. Silence. Then his mother's hand flew to her mouth, tears welling instantly. His father's eyes shone with something Ethan hadn't seen in a long time: admiration. "You drew this?" his father whispered. Ethan nodded. His mother's breath hitched. She reached out, clutching his hand with both of hers, tears spilling freely. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. His father's voice cracked. "I didn't know you had this in you, son. I should have seen you." Ethan's chest swelled. For the first time, the weight between them lifted. They weren't just pitying him. They saw him. Chance wandered in, tail wagging, tongue lolling. His mother bent down, wrapping both of them, boy and dog, in her arms. Ethan laughed, loud, full, unstoppable, the kind of laugh that felt like shattering chains. His father joined them, pulling them all into a clumsy, wonderful hug. And in that moment, Ethan realized being strong didn't mean doing it alone. Being brave meant letting people, and one scruffy, ridiculous dog, in. He glanced down at Chance. "Couldn't have done it without you, buddy." The tail wagged twice. Ethan picked up his sketchbook. Time to draw the next chapter, with them all in it. Ethan thought he had to face the world alone, that needing help made him weak. But sometimes it's when we open up, when we let others in, that we find our real strength. Maybe you've had that moment too, when someone or something slipped past your defenses and reminded you you're not alone. Was it a friend, a family member, a pet who just knew when you were hurting? We'd love to hear your story in the comments below, because we're all a little stronger when we share. If this story touched your heart, give it a like. It really helps us reach more people with these messages. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button for more stories about resilience, courage, and the unexpected bonds that change lives. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.